Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Genie here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Reign of Superman. So, this is a sequel to The Death of Superman, the animated version of course, and I will see to it that I will link to the review I did of that movie. With that being said, so, this picks up right where that left off with, well, the death of Superman. And we're seeing that on the news that a bunch of crimes are happening about, but there are new Supermen on the scene to solve the problem. First, there is Superboy, and then there is Steel, who goes on about saving Olsen, the guy who takes the pictures. So we see more of these thugs steal some guns, and we see a Superman with a visor, who I later learned on his name was like Executioner or something. But I just, in my notes, I kept calling him Visor because that was his only distinguishing feature about him. So, we see that a nuke gets removed from the picture as it was shut off, and then one of the Supermen, I forgot which one it was, but they do their thing. So, we cut to the Daily Office, and they literally drop the name of the movie right here, and they say this, for the news article, and they say this article's name is crap. So, a little mockery on the name of the movie right away. So, he sees the guy in charge, that Lois and Clark are obviously missing, from the Daily Planet. So we cut to Lois, and we see that she's crying at home as she's still mourning over the loss of Clark. And her, Clark's parents, the ones that adopted him, come to visit her. So she figures what she wants to ask these other Supermen that have come about. But, in the meanwhile, she goes on to talk to Wonder Woman in her, disguise? Yeah, it's a little weird anyway. She explains that the Justice League is stretched thin. And after their little talk, she flies off and tells Lois to take care of herself. We then cut to Lex. Oh boy, is Lex the MVP of this movie. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. So Lois sees this other character named John and Lex as well, and she proceeds to try to get up to him, but he goes on to speak up to everyone and introduces Superboy as, well, he's calling him Superman, but really it just becomes Superboy. So for simplicity's sake and not calling all the Supermen all the same names, I will stick with Superboy as well, for simplicity's sake. So Lex drops a really obvious poster to politics, and thus, while he's doing his thing, Lois sneaks off and flirts with one of the co-workers. I believe his name was Donovan, but Lex drops in, and John, who we saw earlier, is overhearing this, or some of it anyways. So we see that the Visor Superman, or the Executioner as he's referred to as later in the film, drops Superboy. In this, he proceeds to attack primarily Lex, and then kind of Lois because she's in the vicinity, but Superboy attempts to fight back. Thus, he is saved by Steel, this Iron Man-like Superman suit with a Thor hammer. That is the approximation of what I saw of what steel is. But I'm sure that steel has been around for a long minute since this is based off of a comic book. So, the Executioner, I'll try to keep calling him that, even though I kept calling him Visor, starts the fight with Steel. And they are attacked, and then he is attacked afterwards, that being, I believe it's Steel. He's attacked by what I kept calling Cyborg Superman, the one on the poster here, on the center. I know he has a real name later on, like a human name, and it gets kind of confusing a little bit, but whatever. Anyway, I'll keep calling that one Cyborg Superman since he's part cyborg, I guess. Anyways, Visor, or Executioner, flies off. See, I'm already doing it. And thus, Cyborg Superman looks up and kind of just stares. So, Superboy's looking on as everyone gets the attention on the Cyborg Superman. So we cut back to the real Superman, Kal-El. It's his Kryptonian name, for those of you who may not know. And it looks like his power was being transferred over to the Executioner, but it was actually vice versa, apparently, we learn later on. Nonetheless, John visits Lois, and the Cyborg Superman, after their little talks with Lois about saving the day, wanted to do the right thing, but Lois wanted to know if he was, of course, Clark, but he didn't know the secret, as he even says that he does not remember everything. So, we cut to Superboy saving a girl and getting a little bit of rep. Actually doing something pretty heroic. Even though later in the movie I think it's implied that they kind of set that up, but I don't know if that's 100% sure, but anyways. The other Supermen, plural, work on saving the day, while Superboy, after his one heroic deed, starts to take photos with all these pretty girls, and that goes on for a little bit, like a little montage of it happening. And then Lex grabs in Superboy and tells him that he has a much more important gig. We then cut to the Justice League, that being Cyborg, Batman, the Green Lantern, Flash, as they are now bodyguards for the President. And we hear about how the Teen Titans have the other parts covered. So, yes, we do get a mention of them, but they are not in this movie. So Superboy also arrives on the scene to protect the President. So the Cyborg Superman is also there, and he's just sort of watching on as we cut to a storm brewing up, and these, I don't know what they are called, unfortunately, but they look like demon cyborg bug things, and they start to attack. So the Justice League go to work, and the Cyborg Superman is just kind of standing there as Superboy tries his best but kind of gets wrecked in the process. Well, not wrecked, but you know, like, he gets beat up a little bit here. But then Cyborg Superman does step in to save the President. So as they do this, the portal that brought all these things in falls in on the Justice League, and everyone assumes that once this has happened, the Justice League is dead. So Lex is pissed when we cut back to him, and he pulls out this needle that would obviously be used to essentially kill Superboy, and he kind of just stands there below as Donovan kind of speaks up and kind of saves Superboy's life with his words of saying of like how he's like learning still and so on and so forth. But this Donovan character is fired, and thus monsters are released on him, and then he is killed. So Cyborg Superman visits this grave, and then gets these visions from Darkseid. So that's our main villain of the film, I should say, or not actually. Well, yeah. Anyway, uh, which we see Cyborg Superman call Master. So we see that Steel is actually John in that little Iron Man Thor suit, and Lois sees this and gets in and knows already. So we learn that this other guy, I believe he was in the previous movie, named Hank Henshaw, I think his full name was, is the Cyborg Superman somehow. Like, he's there with Darkseid, but he's like controlling Cyborg Superman. It's a little weird. So Cyborg Superman talks to the people, saying that he needs help. Sorry about that cut. Anyways, back to where I was. Cyborg Superman, as I mentioned, talks to the people, saying that he wants them to step up and become heroes themselves. So this one man named Eric steps up to become a hero, and when Cyborg Superman touches him, he is given this transformed suit, and people are impressed as he does a little bit of showing off. And thus, when this happens, more and more people step up. So we see that Cyborg Superman afterwards is starting to move on one of Lex's deals. However, when we see this Eric guy again, we see that him saving these people, and then he had this girlfriend or wife or whatever, and she's the one who gets robbed, and when Eric goes to save her, she is referred to as this common citizen, as it were. No, not anyone that he would know. So Steel also arrives on the scene of this drug deal, I assume it was, or some sort of deal, bad deal. And this is the first time in the movie where the Visor Superman is called the Eradicator, by the way. If that is the official name, the Eradicator. If that wasn't made clearer. Anyways, Lois visits Superboy when she was meaning to talk to Lex, but the two of them instead have a pretty nice moment between the two of them. Superboy apologizing for kind of flirting with her earlier. By the way, that does happen. And Lois being like, ugh, but, you know, she kind of gets over it and talks it out with him, and he talks about his situation, about figuring out how he was made and stuff of that nature. So, yeah, she gets a call from Steel about the Eradicator, and Steel is now in the Fortress of Solitude, I believe that's the name of it. It's been a while, but yeah. And we see the original Superman there as well. So, the Eradicator gets in this all-out fight with Steel, and Steel is getting messed up. And Lex starts to watch on, as well as Lois and Superboy. So Superboy flies off, taking off the LexCorp logo, and because he had that on his little jacket sleeve there on the soldier. Yeah. So Darkseid is giving Hank Himshaw, the one that's controlling Cyborg Superman, a talking to. And there were some free humans that did not take up the offer to become a super, and they talk about wanting to have a revolt, and thus they provide to go to this revolt that they learn about. So the Justice League are now fighting in space, essentially. They're fighting the space bug, and that's what they're up to. In case if you are curious. So we cut back to Steel and Eradicator some more. And the little ship opens up and Superman, who's now in the black suit and has the beard going on, wakes up and gets out. And thus, we cut back to Lex showing Lois' dark side and how he was able to pick up that transmission somehow. So, Superman and Steel, after calming things down with the Eradicator, talk about Darkseid, and then Superboy, also visits in. And Superboy calls Superman his dad, because technically, yeah, that is true. So, he is made from Superman's DNA, partially. He has two dads, technically, I guess. Lex is the other dad that he abandoned, or, left, Anyway. So, Darkseid talks about opening the gate to Earth, and Superboy kind of makes a joke, or I think it was either him or Steel makes a joke about, don't do the sex, because you just woke up, and then he was like, oh, alright, I guess. It was a pretty good joke. It kind of came out of nowhere. But anyway. Superman takes his little ship that he had, and the others fly along with him. So Lois goes on to the protest, and Lex does as well. But he's not gonna go in there, the actual, in there. So Lex calls Superman and says that Lois went in, and Superman boosted to try to get there even quicker. Of course, that only happened when he mentioned Lois, because obviously. So Darkseid is talking to Hank some more. And Lois makes it in with the cyborg Superman, and he does grab Lois. So Darkseid wants to move in, and turns all the cyborg people to have them go up and create the portal themselves. And their arms turn into these connecting USB cable things, and it's kind of creepy looking, honestly. As they open a portal, and Lex walks out with this little box device that he had. So Darkseid is getting ready to send in more of his bug demon army, and Lois plays the Superman card on him, saying, didn't you want to kill Superman? So Cyborg Superman rips himself apart, waging I guess he was the actual beacon, so the portal closes, and the cyborg people fall to their deaths, I guess? I mean, they don't wake up, so. And the normal people charge in and see what has befallen this situation. So, Cyborg Superman's convenient words allow Superman to arrive on the scene just on the nick of time. And Steel and Superboy arrive on the outside to deal with more of the cyborg humans that are still flying about. And they kind of help out Lex a little bit, but Lex is kind of busy trying to do his thing, so he kind of doesn't even acknowledge them. So, Lois and Superman, the OG Superman, reunite and they hug. And he says he knows the secret. But they aren't able to, it's cut short as, Cyborg Superman and Superman fight. And boy, oh boy, does OG Superman not actually have it in him right now. He's getting the butt kicked out of him by Cyborg Superman, and Superman's being tossed around. So Lex gets the power source he needs from one of the cyborg humans that fall, and he's the one who actually opens the portal and gets the Justice League to return. So it actually does something pretty good in this movie for all the shit that he gave Superboy after all that nonsense and his obvious campaigning of... Ugh. So anyways, we cut back to Superman, who's hanging in there, doing like little things like shocking Cyborg Superman with this broken cable. But it doesn't work for long. The Cyborg Superman goes on the attack. Lois grabs this gun, and she makes her way to close this little air pocket that is obviously would cause further issues, particularly for her and Superman, I guess, since he doesn't technically have all of his powers yet. And yes, Cyborg Superman does continue to own Superman in this fight. So Lois blasts him and starts to hide out. She sees that the sun is rising, and she sees a device to turn the solar panel and the shades up. So she dives towards it and gets shot twice, but she puts the sonar panels on. And thus, the light is able to shine through, and the real Superman's eyes glow red and blasts Cyborg Superman's arm off. But it does grow back. However, when Cyborg Superman says that he can't die, Superman pulls out, I think it's kryptonite. It looks like a kryptonite gem, this like white kryptonite gem, and he's stabbed right on the skull, and it like pulls him apart from Hank or whatever, and Hank sees the executioner and he's shocked out. So the Cyborg Superman kind of just drops, and so do the remaining human cyborgs, and they die. Oops. So Superman and Lois hug and kiss, and thus we cut to 6 months later, where we see both Superman and Clark Kent talking to the press and how Superman found Clark Kent. And it was actually when we cut to Superman talking to Lois that it was Martian Manhunter as either Superman or Clark Kent, so that they were able to do that trick. So we learned that Superboy has his own name now, that being Connor, and he was set up to live with Superman's human parents. So Superman gets called by Wonder Woman for something or other, and he flies off from Lois. He takes on the classic suit, and he flies abound to Earth, overlooking it, and that is the end of the reign of Superman. A pretty enjoyable movie, mostly an action-based movie with the various Supermen. As I mentioned, I think Lex is the MVP for doing some pretty, whether it's letting some guy die or just being outright honest with Superboy and all that. Like, he has a lot of his moments here. Yeah, and he does technically help save the day. He does bring in the Justice League, so there's a lot of stuff that he does here. The Superboy is pretty basic character for all intents and purposes. He's just sort of this like, oh, I'm gonna flirt with these girls because haha, I'm kind of young. Steel doesn't get a lot of personality to him, unfortunately. He just kind of does his thing. Uh, Cyborg Superman does kind of get this interesting dilemma between him being Hank and all that stuff that happens later. So he does have that going on. Uh, and yeah, we don't really get to see a lot of Darkseid. He isn't the true antagonist of the film. It ends up being Cyborg Superman that ends up being the antagonist. It's a little bit of a villain switch out, if you will. It all seems like it's pulling up to be Darkseid to be the main villain, but nope. Ends up still being Cyborg Superman. So yeah, and this is all about his revenge and how he wasn't saved. And I don't even remember him dying, and I think he died along after the death of Superman or something. Like, it cuts to, I think it happened at the end of the movie, that's why I'm having a hard time remembering it, and like, he's like, oh, Superman will save us. So that was what was happening, like, something was happening, like, flying towards him, and he was like ensuring all of his people, like, oh, Superman will save us, and then nothing happened, and then it was like, boom, they get hit. So that was that's what that was referring to. This is, I still feel like this is way more of a sort of a popcorn flick. There's a lot more action than actual substance here, I feel like. But again, if there was any character who got MVP, it was obviously Lex. He definitely stole the movie. I did enjoy it. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy it. Again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the movie. I do think that not having the context of the first movies can get a little rough on it, so that could drop it down if you don't have any clue as to what happened beforehand, why this is even happening, and all that stuff. So, just a cautionary little part there. As for the characters, there's quite a few of them. But you know, I think this is more of a story about Cyborg Superman. It actually mainly follows the antagonist of the movie more than the actual heroes in it. So that was a bit of an interesting thing. I mean, Superboy technically ends up being a superhero by the end of it, and he kind of does do his little thing, as I mentioned, that one, like, and then he kind of does the right thing eventually, on his own accord, as I mentioned. So, you know, he does his own thing. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd probably bring it down to a 6 out of 10, though. But anyways, still a pretty fun movie to watch. So that was my review of The Reign of Superman, and if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out that link in the description. I'll head you over to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.